I'm just going to read you the beginning of this story by Ali Bracken, right? Convicted murderer Graham Dwyer has been receiving prison visits from a new female friend at the Midlands prison. The woman, who lives in Sligo, asked to remain anonymous but confirmed that she's gone to visit Dwyer behind bars after first striking up a relationship with him, or a friendship, by writing to the killer. Now, this isn't the first woman who has been visiting Graham Dwyer, who's been writing to him. He's actually had certainly one, if not two, girlfriends since he's been convicted of the murder of Elaine O'Hara, which of course was a horrific case involving BDSM and a very vulnerable victim who really was, she stood out in her vulnerability and he stood out in the predatory way he treated her. But Graham Dwyer, I remember when I was covering the case, and of course, anywhere you went, everyone wanted to know, because it was the story. What was he like and all this? And
he was very suave as well, wasn't he?
He was quite normal. I mean, I certainly wouldn't have found him scary at all, and also the courtroom setting isn't scary. You're there, he's in custody essentially.
But he was the star of that show, by the way, so that would have emboldened him.
Oh, he was very confident and all the rest of it. But I felt that he was somebody who was a huge danger to a vulnerable person. Yeah. But I didn't feel like he was a danger to me as such. Yeah. But interesting that women are drawn to him and to people like him. I mean, there's decent blokes out there can't get a woman.
No, yeah, some very decent blokes. It is an interesting phenomenon, and there is a psychological term for it. So I'm going to try and pronounce this. I'll probably butcher it. It's hybrid stophilia. Okay, so a lot of people will have heard of very famous murderers, for example, and serial killers who would have found wives while they were in prison, or death row inmates in America that would have, like Graham, lots of people writing to him, huge fans. So the likes of Ted Bundy, who became a dad and got married while he was in prison, even though there was no
conjugal visits.
There was none, but it was managed.
Okay.
Charles Manson is another very famous serial killer in the UK, and the Night Stalker, you'll have to pronounce his name for me, it's Richard Ramirez. Yeah, so people like that. So what types of women are attracted to these kind of men, I suppose, and why? Yeah, I suppose there's lots of schools of thought on this, Nicola, but for some women, there has been research that has shown, for some of them, they have come from a background of violent relationships themselves. And actually getting into a relationship with somebody who's incarcerated is a safe relationship for them. Because while the thrill of being associated with a strong, powerful man is there because that is their kink, isn't it, under this kind of attractiveness? Because it's defined as sexual arousal and getting pleasure from being around somebody who has committed outrage or committed a crime. So for that person, having a relationship with somebody who's on death row or locked up and very likely never to get out again is a very safe place to be. And also there's the fame that comes with that as well. Some people are looking for attention, whether it be good or bad.
What if they got parole?
Yeah, I know, you'd be scared. Well, actually, there was a case in Australia, and it was two sisters, and they both married very violent men who were in prison. And they were like some sort of religious group, so they believed in forgiveness and redemption and all that kind of stuff. And when both of their partners got out, one of them murdered one of them, and the other one was caught cutting the ear off the other one. So they did. This was, I think, this was in the 80s or 90s in Australia. So they had been advocating for them. For the person who's in prison, having somebody advocating for you, because you'll also get these people who jump on campaigns as well, and totally fall for these people, and they project on them their own goodness. And I think that's what happened in them two sisters in their experience. And God loved them, both of them ended up, one ended up dead, unfortunately, and one ended up very seriously physically injured. You'll also see people
So the women, in other words, that are starting to write to these guys and having these, non-conjugal relationships, because maybe some prisons in the US allow a wife.
They do eventually, yeah, when you've been married.
And maybe some of them do here. I don't actually particularly know. I don't think they do, but maybe that's naivety. You never know what happens. So these women are sort of fantasizing about a relationship with this dangerous man, but they don't ever have to play it out in the real world because the guy is locked up and ain't ever getting out.
Yeah, and that might be a safe relationship for some of the women, but you've also got the women who will have violent histories themselves. So women that may be psychopathic or sociopathic themselves. So for them, being associated with this outrageous crime of murder, for example, or, you know, somebody who's been a serial killer, can really give them credence and give them kudos themselves. So they feel emboldened by that themselves. And the attention that they get for some women, they may not get any attention they might have a small life, and then all of a sudden they're getting attention because who they're associated with. So there's lots of different reasons why.
And the third type will then be somebody who is kind, possibly naive, believes in forgiveness, and sort of this friendship which starts with letter writing maybe turns to a romantic.
Yeah, and it's big business. There's websites like Match.com and websites like that in America, for example, where people can write to several convicted lifers, people that are on death row, until they create a connection, I suppose they call it, with somebody. But there has been reports of like journalists setting up relationships with people in prisons.
To get stories, you mean?
No romantic falling for them. Right. There is one, I can't remember her name now, but she spoke that she saw when she saw the mugshot of this lifer who was on death row for a very serious rape and murder of young people. She said in his eyes she saw something really kind, and then when she got to meet him over time, now I think it took about 7 years for the relationship to develop, but it did develop. You've also got psychiatrists, psychologists, visiting nurses, and then we see a lot as well on social media now where you do see celebrities as well. You've seen cast members of The Only Way Is Essex. We saw recently that video of the prison warden who was actually having sex with a prisoner in the cell. I think that's very different to relationships, you know?
Because the relationship stuff you're talking about there, the psychiatrists, the psychologists, the journalists, that's almost like this sort of, they believe they can save them, or that they've seen something in them that nobody else has. They've seen a goodness there that they believe they can change them. The classic thing you're told, never believe you can change.
You can never change a man, Nicola. I've tried a few. It doesn't work. I've tried
a few corners myself.
yeah. We learn as we get older, don't we? You can never change a man. But I think you can never change anyone, I suppose. But I think that for some women, it's the safety and security that they don't ever have to live the normal domestic life. Like they never have to argue about, you know, the washing or where to go on holiday or whatever. But there's also that power dynamic that shifts as well. So if you're somebody who comes disempowered through relationships where the person that you've been in a relationship has always been the powerful one, now all of a sudden you're the one with the power. So you decide whether you're going to visit or not. You can throw a tantrum and not visit, or you can refuse to put money into their account or the tuck shop, or you can refuse to continue with their campaign for freedom. All of these things gives that individual power. So if you're a woman who has come from that background of disempowerment, the power dynamic is different. So that might be another appeal to a certain type of woman as well. Yeah.
So it's mainly these sort of high profile guys. Well, certainly they're the ones we know of. But it's all types of prisoners, and I mean, is that here as well?
Oh yeah, you will see people having visitors here. Like you often see it when people are released from prison here. All of a sudden, there's two girlfriends turn up, and one doesn't know about the other. You know, because when a man is in prison, he has all the time in the world. So what he goes to the gym, he might do a bit of education, but then he has all night to write love poetry and letters, and you know, and take phone calls. So he's very available, where on the outside he'd be hanging out with his mates, he'd be getting up to bother whatever it was that got him in prison in the first place. So it's not unusual for, you know, somebody who's gone to prison for, you know, what we describe as low level criminality, maybe, you know, 100 convictions of shoplifting or something, but to get a long stretch, they might come out of prison with a couple of girlfriends because they'll hedge their bets.
And what about the individuals themselves? What are they getting from it? They're obviously getting a little bit of sort of a belief that they are loved and that they are still got that sort of power over women, if that's something that...
That's something that appeals to them. Yeah, there's that. But there's also one thing that's really important is for bail. So it's really good for them because they'll have an address to come out to, and that can really help on bail applications. It can really help on your kind of, when you come out, that you're going to be able to be stable and all of them things that are considered, say for early release, for example, or temporary release. So that's really useful. But yeah, of course, any individual wants to be loved, and being in prison is a really difficult place to be. So if you're getting attention from one woman, two women, three women, of course that's going to help you pass your time. And for some people, they can really be changed in their behaviour, in their mannerisms, in who they are while they're in prison, because all of the things that distract them is not there, because they're just focused on that person and they're focused on their children. And a lot of people that come out of prison do turn their lives around, and that rehabilitation does happen. But for the types of people that we're talking about, the Graham Dwyers of the world and the serial killers and the monsters,
they have to be manipulating all the time.
They would, yeah, because they're manipulated. So they're psychopaths, and psychopaths do not feel remorse, or do not feel, they don't connect with people at the same level that people that would have a normal pathology. No, absolutely not. So they're totally manipulating, and they will be getting a kick out of it. The more women they can manipulate, the better. And the more powerful the woman, like they will target powerful women. They will look at women who have really good careers, like journalists and psychiatrists, etc., and they will see them as the prize,
as the challenge,
they're the kind of women they want, because them women have social capital. They also have education. They're very useful to them, and I suppose they also shine their light on them. So very often when we look at these women and when we hear them being interviewed, they will talk about the potential of the person, the potential of the prisoner. When they get out, this is potentially what they can be. But what they're actually doing is shining their own potential on that person, because they're so blinded by their attraction and their attachment to them. It's almost like an attachment bond, which is psychologically one of the hardest to break, And they've only known that person as a criminal because they've only met them through their imprisonment. They may never have met them before, so they would have never crossed paths with them. So for them, they only know one version of them. And when that person comes out, if indeed they get out, if it's not one of these serial killers, like them poor two ladies in Australia, the two naive religious ladies.
It can all go wrong. So women are seen as sort of emotional characters, certainly more so than men.
We are in the main, aren't we? Yeah.
There's no harm in saying that.
No, I'm quite happy to admit that.
Daft, maybe, is another word.
But what happens? Blinded by love. What
happens the other way around? Like, the female prisoners, do you see a lot of men falling hopelessly in love with these?
No. It wouldn't be a phenomenon at all that you would see, really. We know, like, the numbers in Ireland. What is it? About 300 women we have in prison out of a population of over 5,000.
They're not as desirable as their male colleagues.
No. Well, maybe men can't wait, for their carnal knowledge or whatever you call it. What is it? Their desires. I don't know, but I think that when women go to prison, a lot of the time, I suppose statistically, they go for much shorter sentences. And it's very unusual for women to go to prison for these types of crimes, for murder, all them kind of really horrific crimes. So, I mean, you could probably name the female murderers that we would know, the celebrity female murderers on two hands, really. So there's not that many of them also, so what is it, 98% of these kind of murders are carried out by males. So the figures are not there either to even do research on it, but no, they wouldn't be. But what there has been, do you remember there was a film about our monster?
Warner, was it?
Yeah, she had a lot of and she did a lot of art. She had a lot of male admirers. And because she used to do art and send it to them and stuff. I think she was executed in the end, wasn't she? So, yeah, there would be some.
But it's rare.
Yeah, because the numbers are just not there,
And I suppose just to give this lady that is visiting Graham Dwyer her say, and what she had to say to Ali Bracken was that she's visited him in a personal capacity as a friend. I'm on a fact-finding mission, she says. I'm not his girlfriend. I really just wanted to hear his side of the story.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it, how many people are interested in crime, and particularly gory crime, and that bears out, I suppose, when you look at like podcasts like your own, Nicola, how popular they are, and how all of these, documentaries are popular, real life crime. And people are really intrigued and interested by it.
I think they are from an armchair. Or from, while they're out for their walk, listening on their pods, to actually go and visit a guy like Graham Dwyer to get the, a one-on-one with him. I just don't think there's too many.
It'd be interesting to see the correspondence between them, to see what kind of stuff he's putting to paper, because we know from the Elaine O'Hara trial, some of the transcripts of some of the communication that happened there, he was very dynamic and very powerful in the way that he manipulated Elaine. So you would be, I suppose, interested. My fact-finding mission would be, what kind of communication is going on here, and is this lady being groomed and manipulated? And I mean, I'm sure if she wanted to reply to that, she has given a reply. That's fact-finding, but it wouldn't be. If it was my sister, I think I would be concerned for her.
Absolutely, and you're exactly right that it's how he's communicating is probably a little bit more interesting this way than how she sees it.
Yeah.
Trina O'Connor, thank you very much.
Thank you, Nicola.
I'm Nicola Tallant, and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.